Okay, welcome back to Porn Reboot. Today we have Casey Zander joining us, and I'm really excited to have him here. I found him on YouTube, and you can find him there also, Casey Zander, if you're looking it up. And he has a lot of videos focused towards men primarily, motivational, getting your head in the right spot, getting on purpose, all of the ideas that I talk about when we're talking about leaving pornography behind. So I thought we'd have an interesting conversation on how you can make your energy more attractive so that you can attract into your life the work that you love, relationships that you love, and getting on purpose in your hobbies. So let's welcome Casey. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to open up with the idea of living on purpose and not simply for pleasure. I heard you talk about that in one of your videos, and I loved what you said. You said you personally feel that you are doing things the correct way. Can you shed a little light on what you meant by that in terms of like when you get on purpose, how you can feel that internally?
Yeah, so I mean, how I describe it on my channel and with the clientele that I've worked with is purpose is something that goes beyond, when a man is truly on his purpose, right? I think that is very fundamentally masculine, and I think that purpose is needed and is lacking and is missing through culture. And the problem is when you have no purpose, you chase pleasure because pleasure is quick spike of enjoyment, right? But since there's no delayed gratification, I think it strips men of a lot of the things that make a man in the first place. So the reason why purpose is so needed is because it makes you feel as if your time on this earth as a high value man is not only needed, but you're here for a reason. Okay. And that's the key in living with meaning. And if you have meaning, you start to look at your time differently. So there's some guys, they think that purpose is a certain income goal, or purpose is a certain career, or purpose is a certain status. And it can be, but at the same time that it necessarily isn't. Okay. Because a lot of those things are, in my opinion, that they're of the body, right? They're materialistic, but a true purpose is wired internal. And I think that's when, as a man, you more or less live of the faith. And there's even an element of sacrifice to that, which I think is needed to have success in any area that goes beyond just the materialistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly how I talk about it, which is why I wanted you to join me here because you talk about it differently, but it's the same message. It's exactly how I feel. I talk about it as the easy button that, especially when you watch pornography, because I help people to stop watching pornography. They've gotten themselves in the habit of hitting the easy button, which gives their brain this dopamine flood of instant gratification without having to work for it. Right. And when you're on purpose, there's some work to it, but you can enjoy that work and you can have fun doing it. And I love what you just said about, our time on earth here, that when you're engaged in something on purpose, yes, you can have the material outcomes that come along with that. They flow to you is what I talk about, is that when you're on purpose and you're doing work you love, you make money, you have like-minded friends and colleagues. When you're on purpose in your relationships, you actually enjoy the person you're with. You would not believe how many people I work with that don't enjoy the partner they have in their life. Life is way too short to go through with someone you don't enjoy spending time with. Yeah. And we'll get there if that's okay, because another idea I wanted to talk with you about was, how to get your energy flowing so you attract a healthy partner that's good for you. But yeah. I love that.
I could even relate some of this to your ideal niche and audience that has dealt with porn addiction, to even just like the roots of, because that's what you deal with, is men who are addicted to porn, right? It's not women, right? This is all men.
Yeah, it's 99% men. So like, there's some women, but mostly men.
Right. So my take throughout my entire YouTube channel and my journey that I've had through this is men who chase pleasure are very, very, in a sense, feminine. Okay, there's not necessarily a lot of self-control. There's not a lot of strength. There's not a lot of will that they have.
Mhm.
So strong, congruent words like stop watching it, don't do that, right? You can feel their strength in it, but the thing is they're not necessarily able to do it, and it's because they're chasing what's quick, what's easy. So these men oftentimes can't necessarily attract a high quality companion due to the fact that, excuse my language, but if you're jerking and jizzing in your hand all day, your brain has no reason to go out and find an attractive woman, right? It already thinks it's fulfilled.
That's
So
exactly what
this
I
goes
say.
so
Not in
deep. I
those
mean,
words, but exactly what I say.
you have a lot of men that they're socially awkward around women. They have trouble expressing sexual intent. They have erectile dysfunction. It's because when they get a living, eating, breathing female in the flesh, right, they're used to a 3-inch wide by 6-inch long cell phone, and it's very weak, and it's weird almost.
So, do you have any advice? Because that's exactly what we're
Yes,
here
I
to
do
talk
have
about.
advice.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think we need to bring back shame, and I think we need to bring back self-control. And we can talk all we want about the certain remedies that a guy can have, but at the end of the day, he needs to look himself in the mirror and be able to tell himself, stop, don't do that.
Yeah, and
And
it's tricky.
that's an element of control that a strong man has to have his will in life.
It is, it is. And I talk about the difference between guilt and shame because actually pornography addiction is built on a shame cycle. It comes from shame and shame feeds it. So shame makes it worse, but guilt. And so shame is I am a bad person. Guilt is I am doing something I don't want to. It's bad for
Yeah,
me. I feel bad about it. And I always talk about taking that guilt and making it a motivator for change. And I like that by really creating strength in that motivation to stop doing the thing that you don't want to do and get on purpose.
right. Exactly. So these things go very interwoven, and they're very deep, and they spread into more areas in life than just one, but everything is connected. You know what I mean?
And I like what you're saying that about, social anxiety is one of the number one thing that people struggle with because of what you just said. They're used to interacting with themselves in a phone instead
Right.
of a living, breathing person in front of them. And you attract, our brains give off energy, and it's an electromagnetic field. It's literally like a magnet. And if
Yeah.
you're doing something you're not proud of, it's shame and guilt are the opposite of dignity and integrity. So if you're
Right.
not in dignity and integrity, you can't look someone in the eyes. And your brain is literally using the minus sign of the magnet of your body, and you're repelling people because of how you feel on the inside. And when you live a life of dignity and integrity, you flip that magnet to the plus side, and now you can attract healthy people to you. And so I think that's pretty cool, the way that you're talking about it.
So let me ask you this. I have a question for you.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
they say that porn is an addiction, and
Mhm.
I maybe agree to some extent, but also in my opinion, that doesn't an addiction have to have a repercussion if you don't have that drug?
Oh,
I
it
mean,
does. It
is there a
does.
sense of like is the man just not strong enough to close out of his cell phone, or what's the reason
No,
why
it's
he
like
can't do
it's
this?
a literally a full-blown addiction. It's like the same with alcohol, with heroin. Actually, there's brain scans that show that the damage to the brain is more for pornography addiction than it is for heroin addiction. So like
Really?
literally the brain is being damaged.
Wow.
So the frontal lobe is the size is shrunken and the activity decreases. So for a person who doesn't watch porn, and if you watch porn once and like, this hasn't happened to your brain, you just go, oh, I don't want to do that. But the braking system in the frontal lobe like doesn't work. It's like literally like the brakes were cut on your car, and your reward center's going, I need this thing. I need it now.
Wow.
And the brakes
Okay.
have been trashed. And
Yeah.
so there's really bad withdrawal symptoms. It's terrible for people. For people who have an addiction, and just so you know, the numbers are growing. That's why I'm here. I call it, and actually some people in this field call it a silent tsunami. This thing's
Hmm.
coming at men, and it is going to take men out. And I do not want that, because then there's a ripple effect that it impacts women and children.
Mhm.
Less men are getting into college than ever before. Less men
Yep.
are completing college than ever before because their brains are being fried by porn. And
Mhm.
it's a tsunami, but like the brain is literally damaged. There's a lot of studies that show that the brain is damaged, and there's a cycle to it, just like other addictions. So people can't
Wow.
stop. They want to. It's actually called compulsive hypersexual behavior disorder. It's
Mhm.
a real disease.
Yeah. See, that's where I maybe don't know as many of the fine-tuned details of it because I focus on more or less just masculinity as a whole, but it makes total sense, and you see the decline of men and you also see the, decline with just degenerate culture as a whole.
Totally. And that's why your work is so important. That's why I wanted to reach out to you, because like people are going to need you more than ever before. And they don't even know why they need you. They don't trace
Right.
it back to porn, which is pretty wild. I watched one of your videos that was talking about like just hypersexual culture. You go to a concert was the example that you gave. And there's just dudes looking for women and women looking to be found by men. And it's just a total
Well,
sexual culture.
here's the thing too. It's a hypersexual culture, but these men who are exposed to this hypersexual activity are actually having less real sex than ever before.
I know, that's what
So
I keep
this
telling.
sexual culture doesn't make them more sexual. It makes them far, far less sexual. If
Exactly.
you even take a look at like, if you look at the declining of testosterone rates, for example, if you look at
That's
the
linked to porn, just so you know. Porn
right, exactly. The
decreases. It's like
rate of virgins throughout, Western culture. Like
100%.
this has never been a bigger issue. And back in the day, right,
Mhm.
mothers and fathers had to basically teach their children to be good so they
Mhm.
don't have too much sex. Where nowadays men are having to even teach them how to have a little bit of shyster in them so they have the confidence to approach a real life woman in the first place.
Yeah, I have 6 kids. I don't know if you know this.
I
So, and
didn't.
they are that's a lot of kids.
That is
They
a lot
are
of kids.
they are teenagers now. And like this coming into my life, focusing on this has made it that I talk to all my kids. Basically, like I want to teach my kids to desire to be sexual with their boyfriends and girlfriends. Like if you would have asked me that 10 years ago, I would have been doing what parents were doing, shaming kids about sex and telling them not to have sex. But in today's day and age, it's just leading kids to porn. And
Right.
I call porn the worst sex educator ever because it's teaching kids all the wrong stuff. So thankfully, like now that I've opened up conversation with all my kids, they all have boyfriends and girlfriends, and teaching them to move towards that in a healthy way with
Mhm.
their actual human boyfriends and girlfriends is, the what parents need to do, and tell kids, don't watch porn. It's going to melt your brain, because that unfortunately is what is happening.
Right.
Crazy, right?
Agree. Yeah.
Um,
I'm learning a lot even about the addiction culture because I've never actually looked at it like that as like brain pattern of true addiction, you
yeah, it
know.
is. It is.
Yeah.
And it's far more dangerous than, like, if you just think about it logically, kids can't start drinking alcohol when they're 8. 8 is the average age that a kid is exposed to porn these days.
Yeah.
Terrifying. It used to be
Yeah.
11. It was 11, but now it's 8. So
Right.
kids don't start drinking at 8, but they
Exactly.
do start watching porn. And what we know is, I call it the hijacker. Porn totally hijacks the brain. And the younger you are exposed, the worse your brain is hijacked. So you see it at 8, it basically unless you really have self-control early on, which is
Scarred for
difficult
life,
because
huh?
you're
Yeah.
scarred for life, unless you figure it out and you walk away. And so already on the YouTube channel that I have, it's really cool because people put in the comments, like, just because of this channel, young guys, I've stopped and I'm walking away. Thank you. Save my
Hey, let
life.
me ask you this. So is if you do the damage to your brain like this, let's say you quit cold turkey and you got damn good willpower and you're just good to go. Can you reverse these issues that it
Yep.
did to you, or how long does that take?
Yep. It's different for every person, but I just use the standard in addiction recovery, which is 90 days.
Mhm.
But, like I can see people's brains. I use technology, so I can see how a person's brain is performing. So when people work with me personally, I can see, even for peak performance, not that I want you to work with me, but I recommend that people get this headband that I don't sell it. I just have an affiliate link, but you can
Yeah.
see how your brain is performing. It's really cool. So like when someone works with me, I have higher technology that like I can see their brain is a mess. I can see it's healing. I can see it's healing. I can see it's better. But
Right.
neuroplasticity is the most powerful thing in the world. And whether you know it or not, you're always talking about neuroplasticity. All the things you tell people to do is capitalizing on our brain's ability to change itself
Right.
and to heal itself and to move itself in the right direction if you're doing the right stuff. And so you tell people, do this stuff. This is the right stuff.
Yeah.
And you're capitalizing on their neuroplasticity. And it's awesome. That's what I like about your channel, because it's all brain stuff, whether you know it or not, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought, that's why I'm like, let's chat, because I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If it's okay, I just wanted to talk about, you have a video on NoFap, which, NoFap, the idea of NoFap, I think, is incredibly important, but it's also being culturalized these days. But you talk about that it improves your mindset, your ambition, and your success in life. And we've already talked about that just a little bit. We've talked about the successful outcomes. Do you have anything to share on that?
Oh yeah, men are very, like, the thing is the reason why men oftentimes do anything great, whether they realize it or not, is because they want to raise their sexual market value in the eyes of a woman. Okay, and this isn't anything that they have to be ashamed about. This is more or less interwoven into their DNA, I think, for intersexual competition.
Mhm.
And the reason why 99% of guys are in the gym is because of that. The reason why 99% of guys build a business is because of that. Why no man on planet Earth goes out and buys a Lamborghini just because he wants to show his dude friends and thinks it looks cool.
My husband drives a Maserati. I don't know what that says about it.
Well, the thing is this is okay, and I think this is very normal because it's just how men are. Now, the reason why I think NoFap or semen retention is very important, even just to dabble in it for 5 days once, because what you're going to notice is your central nervous system consistently releasing gets very fatigued, right? And you lose your ambition because you have none, because your brain already thinks it's reproducing, or maybe to some extent. So you're not going to have the fortitude and the will to go out and find a companion if you're constantly releasing. So with NoFap, your brain, your body, I mean, this, like, I'm not a scientist, right? But what I notice is, like, you give that 5 days of buildup. If you start to understand consciously, the only way you're going to release is if you go talk to a woman and get it done. That puts a new added level of hunger in a man. He's like 4 days in, he's like, the animalistic sense springs out of him. So guys will notice they're stronger in the gym from it. They need less sleep. They're more alert, right? And that's just them tapping into, I think, a bit of their, like, primal instinct a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. That's exactly what I talk about, is that, and people think because I'm a woman that I'm trying to lead people towards a boring life of marriage, which I'm not at all. What I am trying to tell people is,
do you think
that
marriage is boring?
No, I love marriage, but people are like, you're just talking about marriage. And I'm like, and actually I do YouTube lives all the time too. I'm like, I don't even know if marriage is, like the end all and be all for people, but I think partnerships are. Like, everybody wants to be in a relationship. Generally, connection is part of evolution.
Yeah.
Like, my marriage is awesome. My husband and I, we have we have a ton of fun. We're best friends. We do weird stuff. We do fun stuff. Like, it's great. I would want that for every single person, but people out there, and I don't know if it's just justification, you know how that goes, rationalization, if they don't have it, like marriage is boring and vanilla sex and whatever, because that's not something that, like, going back to what you just said, is that if they're nowhere on a path to achieving a partner, they can't even contemplate marriage. So saying it's dumb and boring is an easy way out. And then just going back to masturbating. And like you just said, after 4 days. So what I tell people is, stop masturbating, stop watching porn, use all that energy that you're building up to go out and connect with a woman of interest, somebody that you can build a connection with. Don't try to just jump into bed with her for a sexual release. Try to find someone that you don't have to commit to them for the rest of your life. Commit to them for the fun in the moment. Because when you can have sex with someone in a connected way and you actually enjoy that person, even though you don't have the intensity of just pornography and masturbation, because they are more intense visually, in a brain capacity, physically.
Right.
So, they just are. But what you get is you get a neurochemical cocktail that involves also connection and fun. And I always talk about eroticism and the animal nature. Tap into your animal nature, and evolutionarily that involves another person, not a screen that you're the fourth wall participant. And I constantly find the need to remind people porn is fake. This is what I tell people. It is fake. It is not real. It's all scripted. The people there don't even want to be there most of the time. I was just talking to a gentleman who's involved in the industry, and he's like, half the times they have to swap people out because they can't even get an erection. They have to swap in a stunt person. Like it's all fake. And your viewing of it is not an experience. You're a viewer of a performance, not at all actually having sex with another person.
Right.
And so I love what you're saying. Tap in the animal nature, build up that energy, and go on out there and find another person. That's what I tell people.
Yeah. A thing I think a lot of guys need to be like cognizant of too is, if you are not reproducing or on the track to reproducing or on the track to meeting a mate, your genes and who you are is undesirable, and survival of the fittest will weed you out. And I think that men need to kind of realize that, like, hey, either get it together or you're basically like, you're shooting your own self in the foot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I heard you talk about something that I don't totally remember, but in one of your videos, but it gave me this idea that I wanted to share with you about kind of the dating pool. In one of the videos that you talked about dating and finding, I took notes, I can look it up in a second, but the idea is that science shows that women want a partner that is equal or higher to them.
Yep.
So that goes back to what we were talking about. Men aren't getting into college at the same rates, more women in college, more women graduating. And my husband is a doctor also, so like the idea is I have 2 doctorates. I have 5 college degrees. The pool of people that I'm willing to be with is very limited because if it's equal or higher. So it's pretty cool that, you're talking about, like, if you're not on purpose and working towards something, you're taking yourself out of the game. Because men will say to me, the pool, there's only 50,000 women in my town. I'm like, dude, you only need one. You don't need 50,000, but you have to be the one that is attracting that person towards you.
Right. And men need to understand too that men have the burden of performance. Like as a man, that you can't hate the player, you have to hate the game. And that's just the way the game is. Like, if a woman is born gorgeous, a woman has value by default because she will always be attractive to the opposite sex, right? If she raises her social status, economic status, or her monetary status, it's even going to give her a higher sense of fulfillment, which it's not even that she wants to make her pool smaller. It's that just biologically that's going to feel like to her what it is that she is entitled to or is just straight up attracted to. And we can't control attraction. Attraction's internal. So because of that, men have the burden of performance. Men have to create value. So if you're born and you're a man and you're not doing much with your life, if you're not climbing the status ranks in any way, shape, or form, you have no value. And that's just the fact. Is that women oftentimes they're beauty, women can procreate and have babies, women are the valuable sex when they're born. Men have to create value by trade.
Interesting. I haven't thought about that. I'll have to think about that.
Right. Men have to make themselves a man. And that's where you constantly, not only is purpose fundamental to your well-being, but it's going to be fundamental to your income, your strength, your ability to meet a woman. Like, all of that is just it's so intertwined.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that everybody needs to do that, but I have been accused of thinking like a man. Like, I think that everybody needs to create value, and I've been but I'll have to think about that more, but I've spent my life creating value for myself. So that's why I think that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And internally that feels good. And but it's just, I'm talking about just like a man trying to interact with a woman purely.
definitely.
He has to make himself something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do. Okay, one more question, if you're willing, and then we can wrap up because I totally appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Yeah, of
In
course.
you talk about controlling sexual impulses.
Mhm.
So, do you have any advice? Because, like I've shared with you, that is a very difficult thing to do for people, where, especially at the beginning of this journey, when they decide they're going on a no fap journey, they're not going to watch porn. Those those first urges and impulses are the most difficult thing for people to get over. And if they can get over that hurdle, then they can create success for themselves. Any thoughts there?
Be tough. You're gonna have to be tough enough to survive the urge. Like that's it. Like I I go to the gym every day. I built a business. I did all this stuff too. I would love to go sit back and smoke a joint and drink some whiskey right now and just jerk off, but I'm not going to because I'm tough enough to say no.
Yep.
There comes an element of will and a guy just wanting to be better.
Yeah, and
And
mindset. I love it. Like mindset is probably.
yeah.
Mhm.
If you get the urge, well, tell yourself I'm tough enough not to pull down my pants and do that.
Yeah.
And that's
I
where,
know. I always tell
yeah,
people you're stronger than you know. Like
yeah,
you
exactly.
got this. You're stronger than you know. And those micro decisions, those little decisions, I like that. You're
Yeah,
tough. Be tough.
yeah,
Push
be
through
tough.
it. And I always tell people a really good strategy is to just go lift some heavy stuff because it floods the system with dopamine, but it is an act of toughness too.
Yeah,
Like
of course.
literally physically being tough can help move through those first urges.
100%.
Okay, well, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And I encourage everybody to go check out Casey's YouTube channel, Casey Zander. If you're looking for motivation, he's there for you. And like I said, everything he talks about is based on neuroscience. So a really great resource. Thanks again for joining me, Casey. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It was great.